Today, I'm going to be walking through a n8n workflow that I built that takes information from a meeting after it's complete and distributes that into various softwares. In this example, we're using Fireflies for our meeting note taker. We have Notion for our example practice management, customer relationship management system, and we are using Slack for our communication channel where we're sending a message to our team about the relevant information. So I will quickly show my Slack and Notion so you can see where we're starting from. We have a really basic client list in Notion. And then in Slack, you can see I just have these three channels on the left-hand side. The only thing to note is this workflow is currently inactive, so we can manually trigger it. You can't put a manually triggered workflow on active, so we have to stay in the inactive view here. The only thing that will affect is these approval loops. We won't be able to follow the normal process of this summary or this revision agent, either of them overriding the original message. So we'll just have to approve whatever comes through. When the workflow is actually active, this process does work. I've tested it multiple times with multiple different versions of the same thing, and it definitely does work. It's just in this inactive state, it's designed more for testing and review as you're building it out. So you can see the items that are being passed along are staying in the workflow, whereas in actual live, it would go through, and as it passes on from a node, it would leave that node's memory. Like it wouldn't retain that information. But since it does retain it in the inactive version, we can't override that with the new value. Again, sorry, that was a little bit of a technical explanation, but it's just something that maybe is useful to know. But the reason that I can't actually request changes once we kick this off. So with all of that, let's actually kick this off. So I just clicked the execute workflow button, which has started it off. You can see we're moving through the different sections of our workflow. It's just hit our first AI agent and now asking me for approval. So let me go to this message. Here we have our summary. I've blurred or blocked out a few sections of this, but the gist is there. And if this looks good, which it does, we have it again here. I'm just typing in approved and clicking the submit button. And I have a second notification about the client. Again, here, I'm just typing in approved. We have some flexibility with what we can type in there. Pretty much anything saying that it's good to go, it looks good. Any positive type of feedback that you would give it would go in the approved branch. Any negative type of feedback or that you need to make a change would go into the declined branch. But you should have seen when we switched over to this tab that we had a message that our workflow had completed. So if we go back into our Notion, you can see we have a new client here. Again, I've blurred their name, but you can see the new page is added with the different icon. And if we select this page to open it, we have this meeting notes section of the page. And if we click in here, where you'll see a little bit more details than we actually got in our summary, because we're passing along our action items from Fireflies. Notion has a limitation where you can only pass through 2,000 characters in a block. So in order to make sure that we weren't going to meet that limitation and get an error, I just broke up the sections a little bit to make sure that we're always within that 2,000 characters. But you can see also at the bottom, we have our full transcript from Fireflies. So if this wasn't enough information or we needed to go back to the meeting to listen through a specific section, then we absolutely have that option. For our Slack, let me go to our home and the client. new client channel, you saw we had the notification that we had a new channel. And you can see we have 4 channel icons here. And again, we have this meeting summary. And at the very bottom, we have the Fireflies transcript link. So very quickly, we were able to go from end of meeting to summary posted to the relevant places that we wanted. Of course, this is the n8n is a really flexible system. So if you wanted to add more steps, if you had a separate CRM system that you needed to add in here, that's absolutely something that you could do. But now I'm going to take a little bit of time and walk through in a bit more depth about how exactly this workflow is functioning. So again, the first thing that we have is our manual trigger. Then we have this configuration node, which is just a convenient way to set up items that you want to reference later in the workbook, or not the workbook, the workflow. So in this instance, I set up the approval user as my Slack ID, and I've also set up the page name, which we're using meeting notes for, and the host of the meetings in this configuration node. But if I wanted to send this to a different Slack approval, I would just change the ID in this one node, and it would be, because these nodes are referencing that item, it would be updated in all of my Slack nodes. So it's just a pretty nice thing to do when you're building out workflows. That way you make sure that you've updated everything and you don't have to worry about missing a node. The next step is just getting our list of transcripts that Fireflies has in the last couple of hours, just so we make sure if for whatever reason 2 meetings end at the exact same time, we can grab the correct meeting. We're not so you can see we're pulling in multiple items here, but we're filtering it by the meeting ID that kicks everything off to the meeting that we actually want. Then we're combining the participant names, which is a detail that we get on our transcript list. So we know who attended the meeting and we reference that later. And then this node is actually getting the more granular details of the full transcript of the meeting, as well as the summary, action items, all of the other details that Fireflies gives us. This Google Sheets node is just for a fallback that we have built in of this schedule where we'll run once every 24 hours when it's activated and pull all of the transcripts for that 24-hour period, compare them to the ones that we've analyzed. So once they're analyzed, they get put in this list. And if there are any that are missing, then we run it through this process. It's just a double check to make sure that we didn't miss anything. Nothing fell through the cracks. This is our first agent. So all that this guy is doing is searching the web for information about our client and adding that to our meeting notes. So in a first meeting scenario with a new client, you might be more focused on the problem they came to talk about or any of those type of information. And normally, if you're adding this to your customer relationship system or anything like that, you might have to go to their website, search for information about them, send a follow up email with a bunch of questions, or something along those lines. The goal of this is to remove those steps and just pull the information that it can from the web that so that you can add it to your software of choice. The next phase of this process is just the approval phase. We kind of already talked about it and you saw it happen as we were going through. But all that's happening here is we have a message being sent to the user with the current summary, and we have the option to approve that or request changes. We could note that it was missing something. We can ask it to change the tone, expand on a certain part, be more concise. Anything that you could say in interacting with AI normally, you could send as your response, and it would be taken into account by this revision agent, which would then draft you a new summary that then gets sent back to you for approval. And that loop can happen as many times as you want until you're happy with it and you move on. The client setup is the exact same. This information extractor is just setting the client name variable for the first time, and then that gets sent for approval. Sometimes when you're using a transcription service, it will change the spelling of a company name or sometimes get some stuff wrong there. So this is just to make sure that the client name going into your softwares is exactly how you want it to be. Again, this is a loop, so you can go around as many times as you want. But once we're approved, we go into our final phase, which is actually just adding the stuff to our different systems. So here we're just running through, grabbing our total current client list in our system, filtering, seeing if we have the client. If we don't, we go into this new client node. If we do, we go into the update node or update path. And here we're just creating the page in Notion, creating the Slack channel, and adding the notes to it, as you saw when we looked at our Notion. And then this final section is just sending that same summary message with the link back to the transcript into the newly created Slack channel. So hopefully that was a relatively good explanation of what's actually going on in this workflow and gives you some ideas of ways that you might be able to automate different processes in your business where you're putting information into various different systems and maybe want to do so in a more automated fashion so that you can save a bit of time.